She never thought her life would take such a turn, but destiny often has a way of weaving the most unexpected stories, and this one began on a stormy evening when Alina, the youngest daughter of a middle-class family, was called into the family's living room, where her parents sat with solemn faces and her elder sister's broken engagement papers scattered across the table. Her sister, Samira, had been engaged to marry a young millionaire, Zayn Malik, the heir of one of the richest business empires in the city, a man admired not only for his wealth but also for his charm, intelligence, and philanthropy. But tragedy had struck only days before the wedding when Zayn had been in a fatal car crash that left him in a deep coma, fighting for his life in the hospital's ICU. Samira, shaken by the trauma, fled, unwilling to bind herself to a man who might never wake, but their parents, fearing the shame and financial ruin of breaking such a powerful alliance, turned their desperate eyes toward Alina, the quiet, bookish younger sister who had never dreamed of marrying a man she barely knew, let alone one lying unconscious. Her protests were silenced with emotional manipulation. Her father reminded her of the family's debts, her mother wept about their ruined reputation, and in the end, Alina, crushed under guilt and responsibility, agreed to the unimaginable, a forced marriage to her sister's comatose fiancé, believing she was sacrificing her own dreams to save her family's honor. The wedding was a hushed, peculiar affair. No music, no celebration, just the cold scent of antiseptic in the hospital's private ward as Alina, dressed in a pale bridal outfit, stood by Zayn's bed, trembling, as the imam recited the vows, her hand placed against his lifeless palm while tears streamed down her cheeks. Cameras were not allowed, guests were few, and the entire marriage felt more like a business transaction than a union of souls, but fate had written it, and when the final words were spoken, Alina Malik was legally the wife of a man who could not even see her face. The following days were heavy, filled with whispers, pity, and judgment. Alina visited the hospital daily, sitting by Zayn's side, talking to him even though she knew he couldn't hear, telling him stories about her childhood, reading books aloud, sometimes even praying desperately for a miracle, and little by little, something unexpected began to bloom in her heart. Compassion turned into attachment, and attachment into a quiet love for the man she had never truly met. She began to notice the gentle rise and fall of his chest, the faint flickers in his fingers, as though somewhere deep inside, he was fighting his way back, and she held on to hope, whispering softly that he was not alone anymore. But not everyone was happy. Samira returned one day, shocked and furious to see her younger sister married to the man she once claimed as hers. She accused Alina of betrayal, of stealing what wasn't hers, yet behind her anger lay jealousy, for though she had abandoned Zayn in his weakest moment, she could not bear the thought of her sister living in luxury as the wife of a millionaire. The household grew tense, alliances shifted, and Alina found herself trapped between family expectations and her own fragile emotions. Then came the first twist that no one could have predicted. One evening as Alina sat beside Zayn's bed reading aloud from a novel, she felt his hand twitch, a subtle but undeniable movement. Her breath caught. She rushed to call the doctors, and for the first time in months, the monitors showed faint signs of improvement. The doctors, astonished, said it was a miracle, but Alina knew in her heart that her love, her prayers, her constant presence had reached him somehow. She stayed awake by his side that entire night, whispering encouragement, promising she would never leave, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw his lips curve into the faintest ghost of a smile. Days turned into weeks, and Zayn's recovery began slowly but steadily, though he remained unconscious. Meanwhile, the business world buzzed with rumors. Board members schemed to take over the Malik empire in his absence, and Alina, who had once been a timid girl, now found herself thrust into a world of corporate battles, power games, and hidden enemies. She had to stand strong as his wife, even when people dismissed her as a nobody who had married for money, and with every insult, every challenge, she grew stronger, determined to protect the men who lay defenseless in his hospital bed. And then, the unbelievable happened. One morning, after months of waiting, Zayn Malik opened his eyes, weak, disoriented, but alive. His gaze fell on Alina, the unfamiliar yet familiar woman sitting by his bed, her eyes brimming with tears of joy. Confusion flickered across his face as he whispered hoarsely, "Who are you?" And in that moment, Alina realized the hardest part of her journey had just begun, for though she was legally his wife, to him she was a stranger. Zayn's recovery was slow, filled with therapy sessions and fragmented memories, and though his family rejoiced, board members plotted harder, some even whispering that his accident was no accident at all. Alina stood by him, patient, caring, and unshaken, though her heart broke every time he looked at her without recognition, and Samira, seizing the opportunity, tried to reinsert herself into his life, playing the part of the concerned ex-fiancé, twisting stories to make Alina seem like the villain. Yet destiny has its own way of revealing truth. One evening, when Zion overheard a heated argument between the sisters, he learned that it was Alina who had sacrificed her freedom, her future, and her happiness to honor the family's name and stand by him when everyone else had abandoned him. Stunned, he began to look at her differently, not as a stranger forced upon him, but as the woman whose strength had kept his empire and his life intact. Slowly, admiration turned into affection, and affection blossomed into love, and the man who had once been a dream beyond her reach now held her hand willingly, not because of obligation, but because his heart chose her. The unbelievable had truly happened. What began as a forced sacrifice had transformed into a love story no one could have written, a tale of destiny, resilience, and the power of unseen bonds. And as Alina and Zion stood together, stronger than ever, facing the world with unity, their story became a testament that sometimes life's cruelest twists pave the way to its most beautiful miracles. So, dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, if you believe in love that defies odds and miracles that arise from pain, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now, because more powerful, life-changing stories are waiting just for you, stories that will make you cry, smile, and believe in destiny all over again. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay with us on this incredible journey of stories that change lives.